The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the first chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he would resolve to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had been born a son, and he named him Jesus. The Gospel of the Lord. As some of you are probably aware, if you've ever tried to talk to me about a television show, I don't watch very much TV at all. The only time I really ever watch TV is when it's baseball season. And then I'm one of those raving lunatics that yells at the television expecting the players to respond for my well-articulated tips. However, something about this week's gospel story compelled me to begin watching the television show Scandal, which means now I'm totally addicted to the show and I'm only 3 episodes in. And there's, I think, 90 total, so I have 87 more episodes to go. Has anybody seen this show at all? A couple people? Well, the story is set in Washington, D.C., and it's centered around the work of a crisis management firm, which is basically a fancy name for a bunch of lawyers who don't feel that they're really tied by the regulations of a law firm, and so they think they can do whatever they want. I'm pretty sure it doesn't really work that way, but that's how it works. Well, the head of the law firm is a woman named Olivia Pope, and her staff consists of an eclectic bunch of people who all have very complicated and sordid pasts. Well, as you can probably deduce by the title, the meat of the storyline is defined around the secrets that people keep. You know, the threat, and then the threat of those secrets becoming public. And all the secrets involve sex and lies and power, because we know that this is what makes a good scandal, right? Well, it involves those and also the particulars, like the juicy, juicy details. That's what makes the show addicting. It doesn't talk in generalities. It's concerned with the particular person, the explicit action, and the fallout that follows. And then there's all the interconnectedness between the individuals. Well, it sucks you in because now I want to know what happens between the president and Olivia. I want to know whether the client is innocent or guilty and how they got into this situation in the first place. And I want to know about the intern who finds herself pregnant and what she's going to do. The more that they reveal on the story, the more I want to know. Olivia Pope is a celebrated lawyer because she wins. And she wins by noticing. She has this way throughout the storyline, at least so far what I've watched. She believes that if she looks into a client's eyes, she's able to tell if they're lying. So she notices how their lives are being worked out. She notices the mistakes people make and the changes that occur. And she notices their humanness and sort of banks on their reaction to the situations they find themselves in. And Olivia Pope seems to believe that everyone is involved in a scandal, either directly or indirectly. After all, this is the story of humanity. And since the beginning of time, starting with Adam and Eve, we have been a scandalous people. It is so also today with Mary and Joseph. And that's why I chose to watch the show, because of Mary and Joseph. Today's reading is deliciously scandalous. There's great turmoil within the Holy Family, which at this point wasn't so holy. They were more unholy and indecent and shocking. I'm sure that grief and worry consumed both Mary and Joseph. And I believe that this is an important point. And it's one where we don't often tarry. We move quickly to Joseph's righteousness and Mary's profound trust, or the wonder and beauty of Jesus. But what about the hours or days in between? The misery, the sense of betrayal and disappointment that Joseph must have felt. And also Mary's fear and hurt. as they sorted out this whole fiasco. I mean, they are in the midst of a huge scandal. Joseph and Mary could have easily been Olivia Pope's clients, because it's quite a juicy story we have here. It also would have been an easy win. A man comes to her because he needs to quietly dismiss his wife who's been cheating on him, but he needs it to not affect his reputation. I mean, I'm sure she's seen this before. A desperate woman creating outrageous lies to protect herself. So her job is to make her go away quietly, maybe some cash, a house on the outskirts of town, and minimize the threat of exposure for Joseph. Now, we all know, right, at this point, from, this 2,000 years later, we all know that Joseph came around. But I'm guessing that many in their family and many in their village didn't. Scandalous Mary and gullible Joseph, they lived with that reality, the gossiping and the sideways glances and the scandal for their entire life. Joseph and Mary's story is remarkable because of what ends up happening. But when we tarry at this point, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, save the angels, which certainly wouldn't be admitted in a court of law, that's unique. They are ordinary people like us, with ups and downs in their relationships. Who in their right mind would have cast these no-names as agents of God? At this point, they have no idea what the future holds for them. I mean, who could begin to imagine what God would accomplish through them? And is still accomplishing through them. Now, the truth is, we have no idea what the future holds for us either. I mean, honestly, an angel could show up tonight and change everything. I mean, over the years, we have sanitized Mary and Joseph's relationship and Jesus' conception. We have made it serene and perfect and peaceful, utterly separating it from the scandal and the drama that it really is. And I say all this as sort of a preface to, there is a term in theology that we call the scandal of the particular. And it is the idea that God, the stupendous being who hung the stars and created the universe, would materialize in human form. And not just any human form. In a particular baby to particular appearance. It's so unimpressive and ordinary and normal that that's what makes it scandalous. Seemingly scandalous behavior is not relegated to humanity. It's also God's MO. Now the truth is, the scandals that seem to catch our attention are the tabloid headlines, right? The movie star drug overdose, or the movie star that gained this much weight or lost this much weight, or the hushed conversations at the bus stop about so-and-so's divorce proceedings and who got caught with who. Or the other scandals, the ones that just kill me, that catch our attentions, are the ones surrounding the church. The atrocities committed by some priests, or the intoxicated pastor that hits a bike rider. The list could go on. There is no shortage of outrageous, immoral, and harmful activities in our lives. In some ways, we prove Olivia Pope's premise that we're all involved in some type of scandal. Well, it's ironic because the scandal of a particular is often used just to talk about Jesus, right? This is how we talk about the incarnation. But the only reason that Jesus was conceived in the first place was because God cared so much about the people that then he sent Jesus. God noticed. God noticed Ahaz and Isaiah. God noticed Elizabeth and Zechariah. God noticed Mary and Joseph. And that's a beautiful scandal, that God would notice and care about our particular lives. And it's true. Just in case you're sitting there wondering, if it's true that God notices you, God does. There are a lot of things that I don't know. But there's one thing that I bank my life on, and it is that God notices us as human beings and knows our lives. I mean, where would we be? How would we understand our human story without that truth? And I think you have to hear that piece to begin to believe that God could actually use you to make a difference in this scandalous world. I mean, at the end of the day, Joseph and Mary both have to trust somehow that however far-fetched and ridiculous it seemed, God saw something in them that he thought could build the world. It is not an easy time to be church, just as it wasn't an easy time to be Joseph or Mary. Resources are tight and spirits lag. Public perception and participation is poor, and we seem almost immaterial in a materialistic world. The church is a shadow of what she used to be, and she is easily dismissed by many. But she is not dismissed by God. You know what is scandalous? What is scandalous is the church that doesn't provoke a crisis. So what I'm going to tell you may seem absurd, but we need more scandal, not less. We need more radical love and less lustful sex. We need more unfathomable truths and less lying. We need more vulnerability and compassion, less ruthless power. Because those things are scandalous in a world that has come to make its living on sex, lies, and power. And that spirit is upon us. There are two types of scandals we can participate in. Either we can be the church that does nothing, says nothing, and believes little will ever change. Or we can be the church that conceives hope, gets under the skin of people, dismisses no one, and is not afraid to touch the sin of the world. You remember at the beginning I said I was addicted to this new television show? I mean, what would it mean if the world was addicted to the story of God, addicted to his love, his truth, and his power, and couldn't wait to see what God was up to next? I mean, that's a story that I love. And wouldn't you? I'd even take a part in that story. The story can be written either this way. Can you believe the church did and said nothing? Because that's scandalous. Or, can you believe what the church did and said? Because that's also scandalous. Either one's shocking. I think it just depends on how we want to amaze the world. And the good news is, which is also scary news, since whenever God shows up, everybody seems to be frightened. The good news is, we are married, and God is in us. And we are Joseph, having received a gift we could not have achieved on our own. God has already conceived it, and now it's up to us to labor and birth it. It's just too bad that God didn't send an angel this time. Just me.